Well, in fact, I've written a book of them called Hope.
Copies at the counter?
Copies at the counter that are signed. And it's short stories, really to say, instead of just pity and horror, which actually isn't sustainable. We run out of compassion. Compassion fatigue, we all know, not another crisis. The truth is that there is great hope. Now, when we tell that statistically, it doesn't have the same punch. Statistically, it's really interesting that 25 years ago, 60,000 kids were dying every day under the age of 5 from dirty water and preventable diseases. Halve that figure 2 years ago to 30,000 kids. 2 years on, it's down to 20,000 kids. And the reason is vaccinations, pneumococcal disease, clean water, because diarrhoea and pneumococcal disease are the biggest killers. But telling it like that is never enough in terms of sustainability. So last year there were 337 natural disasters in the world. 297,000 people died. A lot of them got reported, and Ginny, who does an extraordinary job, I was in Niger with Ginny, and she does camera, she does the stand up in front of the camera when she's poised, she does the sound, she does a one person show, which is extraordinary. And I should pay a compliment to Scott, since a World Vision trained person has gone to AusAid. They're doing much better, Scott. But 297,000 people died in natural disasters. In fact, in 14 days, just a 2-week period, a greater number died of preventable disease. Not a disaster, malnutrition or not having access to medicines, which is not the disaster story where our brains are wired to go, that could be me, I should give, I should respond, but just chronic poverty, everyday grinding poverty. And you know, if I was in Australia and a child died, there'd be a coroner's inquest. And that coroner's inquest, if it was the kids who are dying in our world, would say malaria or pneumococcal disease or diarrhoea. It would say they didn't get them to a doctor and there was preventable medicine, and there'd be a whole change of public policy around it. In fact, if there was a coroner's inquest on the 20,000 kids that died today, you'd really have to bring down a verdict of apathy. We just actually are wired to see disasters, but it's happening every day. So to make that real, you've got to tell stories. The next World Vision ad for the Christmas campaign is a little boy in an urban slum in Sumatra, Indonesia. Always risky telling a story of a Muslim, given some of the subtexts of immigration and fear of Muslims. Literally gets knocked over by a car, loses his arms and legs, too poor to go to a doctor, lies on his back for 2 years in a tiny little squat. His mum toileting him, feeding him, lies on his back. And World Vision hears of the story. Some neighbours come and tell us. We pay the fees to get him to a doctor. We pay for what was 18 months of physiotherapy. His dream is just to go to school. He's 7 years of age. And he gets back first movement in his arms. He gets back then movement in his legs. We're there on the first day he goes to school. Still hobbling. You'll see this when you see the Christmas campaign. Now, all of us get that story. That could be my child. Now, it's a story that isn't a disaster. It's a story of just what happens in urban slums where there aren't footpaths and there's trucks. You've got to tell those stories because our brains are wired for disasters, but the chronic, everyday things happening is really hard to communicate unless you tell stories.